How's it going, everyone? Roger here, Rants About Tech. If you're new here, welcome. Consider hitting the subscribe button for me, and to the crew, let's go ahead and get those likes up. Today's video is going to be a tutorial on the eInk Center from the Boox lineup from the company Onyx. Right here we have the Go 10.3, and we're going to use this as our test subject for the remainder of this particular video. The settings that we find in here should be applicable to other Boox platform devices that are black and white. So this particular device doesn't have BSR, but even amongst the devices that have BSR, a lot of these settings will be applicable to those devices as well. All right, let's jump right in. So what is the eInk Center? The eInk Center is a place on the Boox devices where you can tailor the look of the eInk and how it's displayed on the screen. You can also change the eInk refresh times and refresh rates right from the eInk Center as well. Accessing the eInk Center involves a gesture no matter what way you choose to do it, but let's talk about the most common way, which is going to be swiping down from the right top corner of the screen, where you can see here you get the Control Center shortcuts and you get the eInk Center there as an option. The other ways of controlling the eInk Center involve going to the settings and then going to the gesture settings from there. So let's go ahead and try that. So let's go down to the settings here and we can go to gestures. And as you can see here, we have bottom gestures, side, and other. For our intents and purposes, we're going to talk about bottom and side. Other doesn't do anything from us. It's just top down, swipe down from the top, which doesn't give us that option there. But from the bottom, we do get some options. We have the swipe up from the bottom left, which is this swipe right here. We have the swipe up from the bottom center, which is right here. And then we have the swipe up from the bottom right, which is right here. This is where I choose to have my eInk Center shortcut live. So when I swipe up from the bottom right, I get the eInk Center there. But any one of these shortcuts can be tailored to fit the eInk Center in that particular gesture. The next way we have to do it in the settings with gestures is by the navigation bar. If you choose a navigation bar to navigate the system, you will get the eInk Center icon right in either one of those you select. And even the one that you customize down here, you also have the option to add the eInk Center to the customizable one as well. So those are the ways you get to the eInk Center. And like I said, I'm going to be using the gesture from the bottom right to swipe up to get to. So let's go ahead and get to it. Quick disclaimer before we jump right into it though. There are going to be some settings that we talk about that won't be applicable to every web page and every app, as you will see here. They're only going to be applicable to the apps that are coded and web pages that are coded to handle this kind of customization. If they're coded to handle it, it works. If they're not coded to handle it, they don't work. And in the case of some options and settings you'll see here, I haven't come across in my extensive testing any app or web page that they affect. So yeah, just know that going in, you won't get an effect on everything, but I will tell you every way that I found to use these particular customizations and how they're helpful. So another caveat in talking about the eInk Center is the optimization option we have right here. Now, that particular option is only available in non-system apps. So if we're in a system app like the menus or the notes app or anything like that, as you can see, we won't be able to use those. It says function is not applicable to system apps. So just know that going in, all of these settings as far as the optimization settings won't be available. Now, we will talk about the refresh settings that are down below here. Those are applicable to every app and every situation. But optimizing color options are only available in third-party apps and in some web pages. Because of that, I'll be starting us off in the Google News app. It has a good mix of text, images, and in some cases video, and it will give us a wide range of situations to look at to see what is affecting what in these particular options and settings in the eInk Center. All right, so opening the eInk Center right here, the first option we have is dark color enhancement. Now, this particular slider right here goes from light to dark, and we can see that here on this end of the slider here, and then going to the other end of the slider there, it gets darker. Now, as you can see, the adverse effect of this is you get to add a little bit of contrast to your image, but you can go too far and make a lot of the details undiscernible. So what I like to do is pick a good balance, and I'm going to show you something right here that I found out about this dark color enhancement on the Go 10.3 is that when we go over to 54, let's start at 50. Once we start at 50 and we slide our way over to 54, you'll see incremental changes happening in the darkness from 50 to 54. But after 54, you get a bigger jump in the contrast, and then it goes back to incremental changes after 54. Okay, so that's while I have things set at in the speed mode. So I don't go over 54 in this particular mode right here. How dark you make things will change depending on what speed mode you go into, as we can see here, and we'll talk about later. The slower your speed mode, which is on this end of the spectrum, the normal is the slowest speed mode, you get the most darkness, right? You get the most contrast you can adjust and play around with. But if you go to the fastest speed mode, as you can see here, the contrast gets blown out. Now things get a lot lighter. That's the trade-off. As you get closer and closer to this end of the spectrum, things do get a lot lighter. So just to keep that in mind there. So like I said, depending on what refresh modes you pick will affect what settings you pick as far as the dark color enhancement and the light color enhancement. So I suggest you pick the speed mode you want first, and then talk about or try to explore what dark color enhancement and light color filters will be best for what you're trying to view. As far as the light color filter goes, now the light color filter, this is the darkest it's going to get. So it goes from dark to light. So then you start to go and lighten up the highlights. So dark color enhancement pretty much balances your contrast, and light color filter balances your highlights. So this basically has the potential to blow out the highlights, so you can't see any detail in the highlights. That starts for me about 30. In most apps and applications that have images, about 30. Anything beyond that is going to start blowing out the highlights. I typically have this off though, just so it doesn't blow anything out, because as we'll see in other parts of the operating system, having this light color filter up to any degree past 10 will start to affect how things look on the screen. Okay, so the next option we have here is going to be the Optimize button. So let's go ahead and check that out. If we click on Optimize, we get three options. As you can see up top, we have Display, Color, and Others. Let's go ahead and talk about the display options really quickly. So as we can see here, the first option we have under display is DPI setting. That's set to 350 defaultly. You can change that if you would like, and that basically makes the images and text on the screen smaller. As you can see here, it says adjust the overall size of the page. That's good for if you have, if you're trying to see things in a bigger way, right? This is going to help you do that. Also, if the pictures or images that are displayed on the screen are too big for you to view the whole image, and you want to view the whole thing on the screen at one time, for really big images, you can just you can adjust this setting here to accommodate what you're trying to do. The next option we have here is use app's original DPI. So if for some reason things look really bad to you and you don't know where to set things, you can always go with the app's default DPI. That may make things smaller for you, in my experience, than what you are used to seeing it, if it affects it at all. As we can see here, it didn't really affect, like I said, the default DPI setting for me at all here. The next option we have is bold fonts for regular titles, menus, and body text. And that's going to bold the text in apps for you to make it a little more readable for you if it's not already. Eliminating font aliasing is the next option we have. Now, basically font aliasing you can see as font smoothing. So if you want to eliminate font smoothing, you can do that. It's on defaultly, as you can see here, because that's turned off, which means font aliasing is on. And defaultly that's on. But if you think that you want a little less flickering, because that can cause that, and I think you may be able to save a little bit of battery life from turning the font aliasing off as well. So a little bit of battery life, and you might save yourself some flickering, because sometimes to do the aliasing, our flash has to happen or a refresh has to happen. Okay, so to demonstrate this next option we have, which is automatically full refresh when switching pages, I had to go to another app. So this is going to be Google Slides we're working with right now to demonstrate this. Let's go ahead and take a look at that now. So it's off right now, and when I go to Google Slides and I switch between different slides or different presentations that I have here, you can see that there isn't any flashing going on. It just displays the image we have here, and that's kind of what you would expect in this particular instance with the flash turned or with the refresh turned off. Now let's go ahead and go back to that option there. And we can get there by Optimize, and down here automatically refresh when switching pages. Let's turn that on, and let's go back to here. Now you will see that there will be a full refresh when the page comes up. So it's just not displaying the page. It's doing a full refresh there. There we go. That flash lets you know that the refresh just occurred there. And that's the difference with that particular setting. So let's go back to the News app and we'll continue our exploration. All right, so the next set of options we have for display are going to be at the bottom, which are Cloud Configure, Reset All, and Master Switch. So cloud configuration is for your backed up settings that you may have on the Onyx servers. If you have settings backed up there, you can download those to the device and use those settings. If you don't, it'll give you this message. The device has been optimized locally and currently has no cloud backup available. So that is cloud configuration. Reset All is exactly like it sounds. It basically resets all of your settings here to default settings. Master Switch basically turns off all of the settings you have here and turns them on when you want to use them. So this turns them all off for a particular app because these settings right here are app specific. But if you wanted them to be on, they can be on for you at the click of a button. So that's super useful if you get yourself lost in the settings. Above and beyond going to the Reset All, or if you just want to see what your settings look like in contrast to what the default settings are, right? So that's a good way to also look at that. Okay, so the next options we have beside display are going to be the color options. The first option on the color is going to be Add Text Outline. This particular option gives you an outline around your text if the text has a background, like the For You we have right up here. If we take a look at that, we can see that as we increase and go to the right side, which is the larger value side, we start to see a border form around the For You. We can take a better look at that in the Slides app. So let's go ahead and do that now. So we have at the top right-hand corner the Share button, and we're going to go ahead and add a outline to that particular piece of text. And as you can see there, that's a more visual effect right there than what we saw previously. As you can see, it adds a border around that to make the text stand out from the background a little more. I don't really like that effect, so I keep that off, but that is an option for you if you are okay with that particular effect. All right, so we're back in the News app, and just to reiterate, these settings don't follow you to whatever app you go to. They're app specific, so whatever settings you are in or whatever app you're in dealing with the settings, it's just for that app. When you go into a new app, it'll be the default settings and you'll have to configure those independently. All right, so we're going to talk about the next option we have available to us here, which is going to be the background color. So right now it's set to 0, and it's my opinion, you want to have that set to at least 1, because if you don't, you won't see a lot of elements. So let's go ahead and put that to 1 right now. And as you can see, some of our elements appeared up here that weren't there. And let's go ahead and take that away again and see what else we can see here. That seems to be the only thing we can see right there. But if we're in other apps, you can see it happening in different ways as well. Okay, so we're in the Google Gemini app to display another function of the background color. So I said it should always be at 1 because you won't see some elements. In this particular case, if you have it at 1, you won't see some elements. So let's go ahead and put it at 1 right now. And as you can see here, the Get Gemini button just went away. I didn't even know that was there for a long time until I went to this setting to kind of mess around with the settings and found that that setting right there, if it's not set to if it's not set to 0, there are some elements you won't see. So that's another useful setting to play around with if you're not seeing all the elements on screen that you want to see. So keep that in mind. The next setting we have is going to be image smoothing. And for the life of me, I've tested numerous apps. I've tested numerous web pages. Nothing affects this particular setting right here. I guess it doesn't hurt to have it on, but I haven't seen a marked difference in anything that I've viewed turning that on or off. Take that with a grain of salt. If anyone were to find anything that affects, please let me know. Leave it in the comments. That'd be greatly appreciated. The next option we have here is other colors, and we're going to go back to the News app to display those things. So let's do that right now. All right, so we're back in the News app, and like I said before, not all these settings work in every app. That's why I have to jump around between apps and web pages and all kinds of stuff to find out whether these things work or not, or exactly how they work. So this is like weeks of testing different things to find all of these things out. So let's get back into it. The last option, like I said, is going to be other colors, and it says you can adjust color and cover colors with this particular setting. So let's go in there. The first option we have is going to be icon color, and with this particular thing here, we can see that we have a shift in color with the icon we have up here. And it looks like we have a shifting color with some of the UI elements we have down here as well. No, those actual changes are happening with the particular news page there. As you can see here, the colors on those particular things are getting darker. So you can find a good balance that works for you between what you can and can't see there. I think moving this to any degree just is not good, right? It just looks like setting this thing to anything beyond, let's see here, beyond 0 is probably not a good idea for most situations, but work with that if you find a situation that you can't see something. That may be the option you need to uncover that particular icon or what have you. The next option we have is going to be cover color, and I'm going to go ahead and just talk about the rest of these options in one fell swoop. Cover color, web page text color, web page text size, and embolden web page text. I haven't been able to get those options to work in anything I've tested. And I've tested things extensively for weeks on this particular thing, which is what held this video up for so long. This has been a thing that I'm not sure if it works anywhere. And then I got to a point to where I thought, okay, if it's going to work anywhere, right? If it's going to work anywhere, it would be on their own browser, because these are web page options here. It would be in their own browser and maybe on their own website. So I tried it, and let's see what happens. So let's go ahead and go to their browser, the Neo browser here. And as you can see here, I already have their web page up here. Let's go ahead and bring those options up, right? So we have optimize, and we're going to go down to other colors here. And the options I was talking about are cover color, which let's go ahead and see what that does here. We didn't get any difference happening with that particular shift. Nothing happening in that particular shift there. What about web page text color? We get a flash, but no change in what it looks like on screen here. Let's go ahead and go down again. Okay, again, we get a flash, but no change into what's happening on the screen. Let's go ahead and go to web page text size. We'll get another flash as well, but nothing will be affected on screen. Let's go to the last option, embolden web page text, and we're looking at the web page text here, and we can see all this. Didn't embolden anything, and after the refresh, no emboldening happens there either. So nothing seems to work for that particular app. So just take that with a grain of salt. If you find anything out there that does work with those particular settings, leave it in the comments for me. I'm sure me and the rest of everyone else would like to know as well. Appreciate it. All right, so we're back in Google News now, and we're under the color option, and we're going to go to the next options or set of options beside color, which is going to be others. Let's go ahead and do that now. So under others, we have stay active in background. It will increase power consumption is what it says. And we have the slider for on and off to the right. That essentially will keep the app that you're in. And like I said before, to reiterate, these settings we've been talking about are all app specific. So they don't happen and they don't affect all apps, just the app that you're in while you're using these particular settings. So we can make this particular app stay on in the background and update the news feed while it's in the background. And when I pull it up, everything will be updated and refreshed. So that's one way to do that. You can save battery life by turning that off. The next option we have is force to follow system orientation. So if you're in an app that has a wonky orientation and you want it to just, or if you want all of your apps, regardless of their landscape or portrait, to follow whatever landscape or whatever orientation your device is in, you can hit this button right here, and every app will have a landscape or a portrait orientation depending on how you have your actual device set up, irregardless of what the actual app's orientation is. The next option we have is scroll distance, and what that does is it puts the nav ball essentially on your device with a set of scroll options or scroll arrows, and you can use those scroll arrows to scroll up and down content in pages like I'm doing right here. And the options that you get when you do that is that you get a scroll distance here as well. So essentially, right now you saw how far it was scrolling. I can increase that distance by increasing that distance there between the two deltas there, or I can decrease that distance here and make the scrolling a shorter distance if I want that. So you kind of play around with that to see what you like, whether you want it to scroll a full page, half a page, a quarter page, just so you can read a little bit more. These are the kind of settings that will help you customize how far your page goes when you scroll it. The next option we have below that is going to be remove startup animation. So if you're just trying to get into apps quickly and you don't care about the animation in the apps, you can just turn that on. As you can see, I have here, as it says here, it's for faster app startup. So who doesn't like that? Okay, so we're in the OneNote app right here to display the next set of options we have under the Optimize option. It's going to be handwriting, and you don't get this handwriting option unless you're in a third-party app that uses drawing or some kind of handwriting input. So this particular app does, and because it does, we can see the settings here. The first option we have is Handwriting Optimization. We can turn that on or off. Let's go ahead and turn that off to see what that does. I'm just going to write my name here. Maybe I'll write my name. You can see that's not a very good experience there. So let's go back over here and turn the handwriting optimization on, and let's take a look at that there. And we can see that it's leaps and bounds better than what it was before. We can see the next option we have is refresh time after lifting stylus. So that gives you some time to write other things. So if you're writing something and you need time to continue writing your sentence between picking the stylus up and putting it back down, increasing this will give you more time to write. And decreasing this will just input what you wrote quicker. So if you don't need that kind of time. The next option we have here is line width, and this is what it sounds like. It's going to decrease and increase the line width that you're writing with in the particular app you're writing with it in. So those are the options we have available to us there. Let's go put this back at 6 there. So those are the options we have available to us if we're in a writing or drawing style third-party app. Okay, so we're back in the News app, and those were all the options we had available to us under Optimize. So the next option we have in the top half of the eInk Center here under Apps Configuration. And like I said, all of these options that we've been through, these options here and the Optimize options are all app specific. So they are tied to the app that you change them inside of. So whatever app you're in, that's what they're for. This last option we have for app configuration is the high contrast on off switcher. And what you can do is turn that on or off if you are in speed or A2 mode only. So it doesn't work if you are in normal mode, regal mode, or the fastest X mode. So that's something you have available to you to make text pop a little more. That's the only time I would use this. If you're viewing images, it's always going to be a terrible option to use. If you want a little bit more pop to your text and you value the text over the images on what you're displaying or what you're looking at, then you want to turn that on. Like I said, terrible for images, better for text. So those are the options we have at the top half of the eInk Center. Let's go ahead and take a look at the options we have at the bottom half of the eInk Center, which all of these options are the options that control your refresh speed and refresh timings. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. So the refresh speeds we have at the bottom, right now I have mine set to speed because that's the speed I like my scrolling apps to be set at. But let's start to the left-hand side here. Like I said before, the slower your refresh speed, which is the slower side to the left side, the faster side is to the right side, the more contrast you're going to have. Okay, the better image quality. The further you go to the right, your image quality starts to take a hit, and your contrast starts to take a hit, as we can see here with the highest speed setting. All right, so starting with normal mode, we have over here, which is the slowest refresh mode. The slowest refresh mode, but it gives you the best image quality. And it's going to give you the least amount of ghosting, but it's going to give you the most amount of flash as well. So there are trade-offs with using the normal mode. So better image quality, more flashing. That's kind of the biggest thing there. Regal is going to be similar, very similar to normal mode, except for you don't get that many customization options, which we'll talk about in a second here with Regal mode. Regal is going to give you the most pristine image with the most amount of flickering and probably the most amount of ghosting before you have to refresh. But it's usually going to do a refresh when you switch between pages and menus and things like that anyway. A lot of things you can't even use in Regal mode, and it's only available typically when you have, or when you're using an app that has images, or you're using or viewing images of any kind. So you won't get this option with every system app and with every third-party app. So speed mode is going to be what I would use for going through menus. I've definitely changed my mind on that recently with some other options I've gone through in making this video. But as a baseline, speed mode is good for thumbing through menus and things like that. So if you're doing that kind of thing, speed mode is going to give you a really good image versus ghosting versus flickering. So you get less flickering with speed mode. The image is degraded a bit, as we'll see here. The image is degraded a little bit, but you can tweak those things. You're going to get more ghosting, but things are going to move a little better for you. And that's the trade-off you make with speed mode. So the next option we have is going to be A2, and A2 is what I would use if I wanted to scroll through something, right? If you need to scroll, A2 is good for that. It's going to be a better visual representation of what's going on and smoother motion for your scrolling in A2. Less visual quality, right, than speed, regal, or normal. More ghosting than speed, regal, or normal, but less flashing, right, and smoother motion. So that's the trade-off you make for A2. The last option we have here is going to be X. And X mode, to me, is the mode that you're going to use if you want to watch video. This is going to be the video mode. And to me, on this particular device, the Go 10.3, that's not even the video mode for me. I've been using A2 even for video. So anything scrolling or video, I've been using for A2. X just makes things too blown out, as you can see here. Like I said, there are some things we can do to mitigate this, and we can make this image usable, but it's not going to look anywhere near as good as X2. And X2 has enough motion, enough fluidity to make things look good even when they're in motion. Things don't look good when you're viewing eInk in motion no matter what. But if I'm picking between A2 and X, I'm going with A2 for motion. But that's just my opinion. All right, so let's go into the next option we have here, which is going to be more. So let's go into more here. Under more, we have two sides. We have normal and we have speed. So let's talk about this a bit. So under normal mode, those options and these options we're selecting here are going to be just for if you are in normal mode. So if you use normal mode as your default refresh mode, so let's go ahead and take a look at here. If that's what you have selected for your normal refresh mode, these are some options that I'm going to show you that you can customize even within that normal refresh mode. There are some options you're going to pick here that you don't get to configure at all. Like X, you don't get an option to configure any of the settings there. You get an option to configure one or two of the settings under A2. You can configure some of the options under speed and maybe some under regal, but normal and speed are what going to give you the most amount of options here. We'll see that though. So just keep that in mind. The options we're going to talk about right now are only available to you if you have normal set as a refresh mode. So let's go ahead and go back into more, and we'll go to that normal set. So these are the options you get only if you're in normal refresh mode. And these are the options you can tweak within that normal refresh mode to make normal refresh mode work a little better for you. The way I've come to see this is that these options, well, normal mode is the mode that allows you the least amount of fluidity. Like it's the static image refresh mode. So if you're just viewing static images, or you're just like going through menus, like the Notes app is a perfect example for something I would use in the normal refresh mode because you're not doing anything but writing, and you can make things look really good in that mode. But if you do need to move something, say you like to use normal mode in your menus, you want the menus to look as good as they can, so you're using normal mode because it gives you the best image quality that you can use for the menus. If you want to do that, these are some options that'll give you some customization in the way things move when you do have to move something. So let's talk about that right now. Okay, so now that we understand what the normal mode settings are, let's make sure we're in normal mode, and we are right here, and we'll go back into there. All right, so now that we're in normal refresh mode and we can take advantage of these settings, because like I said before, if we're not in normal refresh mode, none of these settings will work. They'll be available to us, but changing them wouldn't do anything on screen. So let's go to the first option here. We have refresh system, automatic full refresh after dragging and releasing. That's off right now, so let's go ahead and see what the behavior looks like when we drag and release something on screen. So we drag and release it, nothing happens. There's no refresh happening on screen. This is what it looks like when we drag and release it in normal refresh mode, right? And normally I would have this in speed mode for motion things, right? But we're just trying to see what this looks like in normal mode so we can illustrate this in the most meaningful way. So now, what I can do now is go into here and say, okay, let's turn that refresh on. So whenever I drag, I want it to refresh after I release. So now when I release, it refreshes, everything looks really good. Okay, so now that it's refreshing, next we have the option that says drag to refresh 1 second. And then we can increase that 1 second to 2 seconds and 3 all the way up to 5 seconds. So now, instead of refreshing immediately after we release, we can drag, release, and we have some time before it does a refresh where we can look at something and say, okay, let me just drag some more before the refresh happens. Okay, I've had a chance to take that in. Okay. Now, if I get caught on something for more than 5 seconds, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be here a little while. Then it'll do a refresh. It'll know that, okay, I'm going to sit here. It does a refresh after 5 seconds. And you can customize that however you want to for your particular viewing needs there. But that's what that particular option does. So let's go back into our more options here. And we're going to go ahead and take that back down to 1 second. So it's going to refresh immediately after we let go. Now, the next option we have is when scrolling a page, use normal, A2 or X. And what that means is if we have our refresh set to normal, it's going to do what normal refresh behavior dictates, right? When we scroll something. But if we want it to do something other than the normal refresh mode setting, which is what we got it to do here, we can have it do the A2 setting, which makes it run a little bit faster when we're scrolling. Like we maintain the normal refresh mode image when we're not scrolling. But as soon as we start scrolling, these other modes can take hold. We can leave it to normal, or we can have A2 take hold or X take hold. What that's going to do is allow us to scroll a little bit smoother when we're in the non-smooth moving normal mode, which is the slowest refresh mode. So it lets us move to a faster or two other faster refresh modes while we're scrolling, and while we're scrolling only, and only if we're in normal refresh mode. All right, so let's go ahead and see what this looks like when we're scrolling here. So we can see it doesn't look very good. Okay. So we're going to change that scrolling to see what it looks like under the A2 mode. And on the A2, as you can see, scrolling gets a little bit better. Okay. It has the refresh after I get done, but the scrolling looks a little bit better. It's not so milky looking, okay? And the scrolling only gets better as we go up to the X, right? So it's going to look better and more fluid as we get faster, and X is the fastest refresh mode. So again, these settings right here are only taking in or going into effect when we're scrolling. If we're not scrolling, the normal best image quality mode is what we will be in, okay? So that just gives us some leeway within the normal refresh mode. All right, so the next option we have here is current app full refresh by tap count. And right here we have it set to 20, but we can go down to 0. So any tap count will refresh. And we have it all set all the way up to 50. And essentially what that tap count is essentially when you're either doing this, scrolling things, selecting a menu option, or anything like that is going to be a tap count. And after that set number that you set here, a refresh will happen. All right, so the next option we have is going to be animation filter time. And what that's going to do is offer you slightly better scrolling at the cost of image quality. So it's kind of going to try to do what these options right here do. And to me, this option right here should only be used when you have when scrolling a page, use normal mode. So if you're in normal mode already, which is the only mode you can use these options in, and you have when scrolling a page, use normal mode, then that allows you to use this and it will take some effect, which I'm going to show you now. So without that, this is how it looks when we're scrolling. Okay. Now what we can do is increase this, and what that does is it filters out the animation frames. So we have less frames and it looks like we're just going to scroll. I mean, it looks like we're swiping, not scrolling. So let's take a look. See how you don't really see a scroll animation anymore. It cuts those animation frames out so it doesn't look so milky. Now, moving on to what that does, let's take a look at what that does again here. So let's move that down, and we already saw what that looks like when we don't have the animation filter on, so where you're seeing all of the animations go through, all the frames of the animation. It does the same as kind of what we do here, right? So you can mitigate that by using A2 or X here. And when you scroll, it won't have that milky look, right? So again, I think that option should only be used, and that option, I mean the animation filter time, option should be only be used when you have, when scrolling a page, use normal mode. Because normal mode looks the worst when you're scrolling. So this this is like the last ditch option to help you mitigate the scrolling milkiness that happens when you do scrolling within the normal refresh rate mode. All these options though have that in common. So all these options are made or put in here to help motion and scrolling when you're in the normal refresh mode. So it's just to help to mitigate what things look like when you're in that mode. The next option we have beside normal is going to be speed. So let's go there now. And under speed, basically, these are the options you have to you that are going to take effect if you're in the speed mode. So let's go ahead and go into the speed refresh mode now, which is typically what I'm in. So in the speed refresh mode, like I said, this is the speed mode I use typically when I'm using things that I'm scrolling. And since this news app is a scrolling app, speed mode is what I typically use. So when you're in speed mode, you have these speed mode options available to you here, or this one speed mode option. Not as many options as if you're in the normal mode, because you don't need that much help with motion in speed mode. It's already built to handle motion. So you get the one option here where it says anti-flicker. The larger the value, the less flicker the screen will have, but the ghosting will increase. So basically, the larger values here decrease flicker but increase ghosting. Larger values also darken the image and wash out the highlights. Only active in speed and A2 modes, as you can see down below here. All right, so let's go ahead and see what this looks like as we're moving it without it being pushed up. And we can see here that it moves good, but you do have a little bit of flicker that happens as it's settling, right? But the motion is good. What this tries to do here, this anti-flicker, is it tries to decrease the amount of flickering you get once the image is settled, right? And it does a good job of maintaining some of the image quality without washing out things and without having that flicker. I'd rather have it with a little bit of flicker because the flicker isn't all that bad, and maintain some of the image quality because it looks like it's hindering the image quality a little bit for me, but I can handle a little bit of flicker. I'm okay with that. All right, so the last option we have here is going to be the settings card we have at the end. So let's go ahead and click on that. And if we click on that, it's going to take us to our refresh mode settings. And this is the refresh mode we can set independently for all apps, right? We can set our refresh mode for our individual apps as they show up here through this list by just clicking on it and then selecting what refresh mode we want it to be in. We can also search through our apps if we have a lot of apps and we need to search it by name. You can select all of the apps and change all the apps to any one of these particular refresh modes, which is normal, speed, A2, and X. So if we click any one of these, all of the apps will be set to that. All apps. The next thing we have here is going to be, do you want to restore all apps to default refresh modes? And we can do that with that icon there. The next one, if you want more information on the icon or the refresh modes, you can click that information icon there and it'll give you some more information on the particular refresh modes and what they mean and kind of what they do as well. The last option we have here is going to be the sort by, and you can sort these apps by recently modified first, recently modified last, name A through Z, name Z through A. So the next group of settings I want to talk about are going to be available to you only in Reader apps. And right now we're in the eReader. And if you look at the refresh modes or try to get to your refresh modes, you will see this particular option here. Again, you won't have the optimization options here because this is a system app. But you will be able to change your dark color enhancement and light color filter. But the refresh modes aren't available to you how they are available to you in every other situation. So when we get to this point, we see reset the refresh settings for current app. And if you hit that, you don't get a confirmation. So you just kind of want to know what's going to happen when you do that. And that's going to reset the refresh settings for this particular app, just like it says. If we click on this, which says, please use the app's refresh settings, we have a different set of refresh settings available to us, right? We have refresh mode to start off. That's going to give us normal, regal, or speed modes just for this particular app. Next, we have refresh mode, and that's going to be a normal refresh or a deep mode. Deep is if you do a refresh and you aren't satisfied with the ghosting that it's taken away for you. But if you're satisfied with the refresh that you're getting, I would definitely keep it at normal. I think it may take a little bit more power to do a deep one. The next option we have is drag to refresh. And basically what's going to happen is if you want to refresh after dragging and you want to wait 3 seconds, you can select this here. If you want the drag to refresh to follow speed mode rules, you can select that here. If you want no refresh after dragging to refresh, you can select that right there. So essentially, no matter what mode you're in, you can select speed mode type of refreshing. So for refresh rate, right here we have 1, 3, 5, 10, 30, and 50. After every page turn, you can set it there and it will refresh. You can set it to refresh after every 3 page turns or every 5 or 10. So that's what that's basically about there. Apply to all documents. Now these settings is what you can have applied to all of your documents that you happen to pull up here. And you can have in speed mode, eliminate font aliasing. So if we're in speed mode, so we can put it in speed mode here, we can eliminate font aliasing. And basically, like I said before, when we talked about the font aliasing is just basically font smoothing. And so if you want to take the battery hit and have your font smooth, you can turn that on. If you want to save some battery life and you don't really care about the font smoothing, you can turn that off in this particular setting there. All right, that's gonna be it for me in going through the eInk Center for the Boox platform. I hope you guys got something from that. That took a long time for me to get that information to you. I'm also going to be doing a recommendations video shortly after this one, and I'm also going to be doing a Note Air 4C version of this to color a lot of the color devices that Boox offers in their lineup. This should work for most non-color items, so we're going to try to cover the gambit here. So like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and got something from it. Go ahead and like if you liked the video. Go ahead and subscribe if you want to see more, and until the next time, everybody, take care.